superintendent for Hamtramck Public Schools, and I will share all the data that we have in Hamtramck Public Schools regarding Yemeni students. I want that conversation. I welcome it. As you say, sir, we deal with, you know, this kid was fighting or this kid did whatever, threw a rock through the window. That is not what's important. What is important is the data and the success. We have some Hamtramck students here are very successful. I need to replicate their success among not only the Yemeni students, but all students, but particularly, I am here to have that intelligent, separate conversation than with fighting. So I just want to make that clear.
We appreciate Thank you. We appreciate your willingness, and we definitely embrace it equally, and we would definitely engage in that conversation with you and the rest of the community. Now, I know we're not used to this, but I'm just going to add, before we move on to the next session, that we actually designed our conferences to be interactive. And so we beg the presenters, and I know I've actually broken the rule, but we beg the presenters to reduce their presentations usually to 10 to 15, and we expect the audience and we expect you as active participants to ask a lot of questions and be completely engaged. We don't see this as a one-sided conversation.
Okay, about this data, I mean, is it specifically for Yemeni students or for the whole districts, including the other students that should be right?
The Salina data, I mean, we see it as reflective of the Yemeni American students because of the demographics and because of the makeup of that school. And the rest of the data to the right for 2006-2008 was district-wide data, and the bottom table was the state data.
So for all
From
students?
all students, right.
So maybe for other schools, you may communicate with the school districts to have the Yemeni, if you are, I mean, concerned about this.
Right. See, there's one issue that we need to, realize is that Yemenis are not isolated in any data collection or data gathering process. We are not considered a subgroup, by virtue of, national affiliation, or we're not even considered a subgroup as Arab Americans. So we're only, and that's why we use the Salina data. This is almost like self-sampling or self-grouping. But no other district will be able to take the data for the Yemeni Americans, because we identify students who are native born will identify themselves as white, and that data cannot be isolated. Okay.
Thank you, Shakir, for your presentation. I really have one question. When you did your data, do you think there is a difference between a first generation and the second generation? Let's say Dr. Rashid is an educated and has a dollar, she's an educated person. What about the person who just came to this country and no education? How are we going to support this family? How the AAYSP be involved with this family? This is an important thing, because when you did the data, there is a big difference between the first generation and second generation.
Yeah, I think that we have not really isolated the data to reflect or to understand the difference between the two generations. We probably have informal data ourselves, and know families and know 3 generations and where they are and so on and so forth. But I think this is only the beginning, and we need to look further. We need to dissect the data further. The rest of your question, what is the AAYSP going to do? You'll get the answer throughout the day from the other presentations. Thank you.
Continuing the trail of education, there's many issues that arise in our community as a student goes through school. Our next segment of presentations will explain the issues that really occur in our community. The first presentation will be high school dropout, causes and solutions, and it will be presented by Jafaar, principal of Edsel High School. Mr. Hassan, enjoy.
pleasure for me personally to come and address your forum this morning. We all know the importance of education, so I'm not going to dwell and lecture about this issue. I was asked to present about high school dropout. You know, I'd like to change the term to drop in rather than drop out. Basically, given the state of our economy, we have no choice but to educate our youth and never give up on any single student. To give you a historical background about education in general in the United States, many of you will be surprised to know that education in this country is not, so more and more trouble for them to sustain a good economic base. It's going to be staring them in the face. So how can we save our youth that are currently in the pipeline? I saw the data, and this data is from the MEAP, Michigan Educational Assessment Program. It's true that every single school in Michigan is analyzed and is ranked based on the data on these assessment tests. However, we all know that you can present as much data as you want, but the point is, what do you make of it, and how much deeper can you dig to get to the root causes of the deficiencies in that educational performance? I don't care how we analyze and how we dig deeper and how much we delve into this, literacy still remains the #1 factor for success. Our students who are doing well in high school and beyond high school are reading or came to us to the high school reading at or above grade level. We analyzed some data at Edsel High School. Even with the students that are coming to us from Salina and the other feeder schools, you know, Laurel Smith and Stout Middle School in Dearborn, we found out that yes, sometimes the child will do well on these tests, and to some of us this might be a surprise. So I want you to be very keen in understanding what I'm trying to say, and if I'm not too clear about it, you know, we can have more explanation, you know, with the question and answer session. A child passes the MEAP test. He or she is proficient. That's very nice. We want all children to pass because we want the school to look good. But then, when we test the reading level of the child under different circumstances, we find that that child is not reading at a grade level, and he or she, when they go to high school, we have some serious issues because he or she cannot keep up. So we need more and more interventions. How could that be? The MEAP is an untimed test. In other words, a child can take a day or two to finish the test. Even though the state says, okay, recommended time 45 minutes or an hour, but the MEAP is untimed. #1. #2, any child who comes from a home where there is another language spoken at the home, that child is labeled as a bilingual child. So bilingual children. Now, even if that child is advanced and that child does not need any help, because that child is labeled as a bilingual child, he or she is given what? Accommodations. Somebody can read the test to that child, somebody can help direct the child during testing, so it becomes a little bit tricky in figuring out the true level or the assessment of the level of achievement for that child. We finish the MEAP, we go to the high school. At the high school, we have the Michigan Merit Exam, which is ACT, purely ACT/Michigan Standards. It's 2 tests combined in one, over 3 days period in 11th grade. And this is where we have the huge discrepancy in achievement. Middle school, we're doing fine. We go through high school, and then we have that big challenge in high school. So what happens? Our parents come back to us and say, my child was doing great in middle school. My child was an A student. My child is this. But, you know, in high school, you know, you guys are not doing a good job, or my child is having difficulty. Well, the counter argument to that is very simple. If the child was reading at grade level in middle school, when he or she goes to high school, perfect fit. We see the data line going up, 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 not a problem, proficient in every aspect. We all know the importance of the ACT. Right? The ACT is the American College Test exam, and based on these scores, the colleges grant scholarships and grant admission. In Dearborn, no student will graduate from Dearborn Public Schools without taking the Michigan Merit Exam / ACT. We all understand the stakes are very high. So, analyzing the data, harping on the issues of literacy, performing all the interventions that we can provide to make sure that our students are at or a little bit below, we don't want to call below, but at or above grade level in reading, that will help tremendously. I want to conclude my remark about a few things about bilingual students who come from overseas. Every year, we have about maybe 30 to 40 students that come to our school from overseas, different countries. It doesn't have to be Yemen. But what we've been noticing more and more, that these students come with some deprived educational backgrounds. So already they come in, fighting to position themselves to graduate from high school. The state says, once you enter a student on your school records, the clock starts ticking. So we put that student in 9th grade, the state says, regardless of the background, regardless if that student is zero English, regardless, the clock starts ticking and you need to graduate that child in 4 years. So if you don't graduate them, your graduation rate, now the state ranks the high schools by the graduation rate, it's going to go down. So potentially what we're doing, because the way the system is built, we are enrolling dropouts. Because if you have a kid who's 16 years old or 15 years old coming to you as a 9th grader, 4 years he or she has to have, the high school diploma. The clock is ticking. By the time they turn 20, we're done. A lot of challenges. There are many, many venues we can discuss today, but the bottom line is the following. Through parental support, and I'm so proud of Mariam, I'm so proud of the other students in the audience today, but Mariam Mohamed, our previous speaker, is graduating from Edsel High School this year. Mariam is ranked in the top 5 students, not top 5. So you're talking 2%, top 2% at Edsel High School. That's a remarkable achievement. I'm not surprised because I know our kids are smart. And Mariam is positioned to take a physics internship research at Wayne State University. So imagine this, an Arab Muslim young lady going into physics research at Wayne State University. That's an awesome, awesome honor, and we're so proud of her. To conclude, we own every single child in our schools. Their failure is our failure, and their success is our success. This is the premise we operate from in Dearborn Public Schools. And if you are interested in more data, let me give you this name. Dr. Shireen Arab